Before I go any further, let it be acknowledged that all the glory goes to God. But the choir gets some appreciation.
Thank you.
Our second scripture reading I'm going to have the late Eugene Peterson help us out with comes from Luke. By this time, a lot of men and women of doubtful reputation were hanging around Jesus, listening intently. The Pharisees and religion scholars were not pleased, not at all pleased. They growled, "He takes in sinners and eats meals with them. Treat them like old friends." Their grumbling triggered this story. Let's go ahead and picture it. Then he said, there was once a man who had 2 sons. The younger said to his father, "Father, I want right now what's coming to me." So the father divided the property between them. It wasn't long before the younger son packed his bags and left for a distant country. There, undisciplined and dissipated, he wasted everything he had. After he'd gone through all his money, there was a bad famine all through that country, and he began to hurt. He signed on with a citizen there who assigned him to his fields to slop the pigs. He was so hungry he would have eaten the corn cobs in the pig slop, but no one would give him any. That brought him to his senses. He said, "All those farm hands working for my father sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am starving to death. I'm going back to my father. I'll say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand.'" He got right up and went home to his father. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him. His heart pounding, he ran out, embraced him, and kissed him. The son started his speech. "Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son ever again." But the father wasn't listening. He was calling to the servants, "Quick, bring a clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then get a grain-fed heifer and roast it. We're going to feast. We're going to have a wonderful time. My son is here, given up for dead and now alive, given up for lost and now found." They began to have a wonderful time. All this time, his older son was out in the field. When the day's work was done, he came in. As he approached the house, he heard the music and dancing. Calling over one of the houseboys, he asked, "What was going on?" He told him, "Your brother came home. Your father has ordered a feast, barbecue beef, because he is home safe and sound." The older brother stalked off in an angry sulk and refused to join in. His father came out and tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. The son said, "Look how many years I've stayed here serving you, never giving you one moment of grief, but have you ever thrown a party for me and my friends?" Then the son of yours shows up. The son of yours who has thrown away your money on whores shows up, and you go all out with a feast. His father said, "Son, you don't understand. You're with me all the time, and everything that is mine is yours, but this is a wonderful time, and we had to celebrate. This brother of yours was dead, and he's alive. He was lost, and he's found." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
So tells you how sermons work. I had an awesome opportunity yesterday. We went to see, and I don't know how you pronounce it, so however you pronounce it is perfectly fine. I don't know if it's Van Gogh or Van Gogh. So somebody's going to correct me, but I've got them both out there, so I'm off the hook. I think.
Awesome.
So we go downtown, me and my family, we're looking at the Van Gogh, Van Gogh exhibit. I don't know art any more than I know music. But it was neat to look at. And as you're going through, I learned a few things. The old dog can learn. It was neat to see how this individual's art changed and evolved over time. But here's what I really enjoyed doing. I could stand back from a painting and see a picture. And it's really cool. There was this one I focused on for some reason. It was nothing more than a wind-blown tree on a hilltop with rocks around it. And if you step back, you saw a wind-blown tree on a hilltop with rocks around it. But what was really cool to me was to get up really close where you can see all the little brush strokes. There'd be a dot of color here and a dot of color here and a dot of color there. And you can see the little dots of color or the brush strokes. It was really cool. On the one side, there was a cloud. It looked like a puddle of white paint he just put on there. And you can't see the picture when you get close. You see the brush strokes. You see the dots of color. But when you get back, you see the whole thing. And it comes together. Hold on, I thought it was fascinating. On the screen is Rembrandt, that great artist. I've seen some of his works in the museum. Talking about the return of the prodigal son. I would bet JP's salary that everybody's heard plenty of sermons on the prodigal son. Let's see if anybody says no. It's one of those passages we hear about and talk about almost as a cliche, the prodigal son. And it's amazing how Rembrandt pictures him here. There he is, on his knees, shoes torn, can't even see his face. The son who said, "Dad, you're dead." Man, can you think of a harsher insult towards a parent? You're dead. Give me my inheritance now. A lot of us from an older school would say, Dad should have taken him out behind the woodshed. But not this dad. This dad says, okay, I got you covered. Son goes to a faraway land. He had to go to a faraway land likely because if he'd done it, stayed close by, he would not have been able to sell anything. Dad wasn't dead. He couldn't sell it. Goes to a faraway land and just blows his money. Just spins it up one side, down the other, doing whatever you can imagine, and probably a bunch of things you can't imagine and don't want to imagine. And then, not exactly a news story, we've heard it before. He really gets into hot water and he's hungry. And he's feeding the pigs. Now, if you were Jewish hearing this story, that's like the ultimate humiliation. I mean, pigs are filthy. You don't even eat pig if you're Jewish. When I was in Israel, somebody asked for a sausage omelet, and I had to explain to the poor lady, there's no sausage in Israel. And he's feeding the pigs, and he's willing to eat the pig food. And he finally realizes, those who are working for my dad, well, they ain't so bad off. So like any of us, when you're a child, you think about it. You know you're in trouble. And you know mom and dad's coming home, so you start rehearsing that speech about how it wasn't your fault. You know what I'm talking about? Tell me I'm wrong. I remember as a kid, I'd stolen some cookie dough from the fridge. And I realized I'd stolen too much. They were going to notice. I mean, when you go from about that much to about that much, you think they're going to notice, right? And I put two and two together and said, okay, they're going to realize this. So my dad comes in, who ate the cookie dough? And I had to rehearse this all day. I did. He said, who ate the cookie dough? The dog did it. It's the problem with being an only child. I didn't have any siblings to blame. I don't understand they did not believe that the dog could open that fridge and eat the cookie dough, especially when it was so smooth. I never could figure it out. But I rehearsed that all day. So the son rehearses his speech, and he goes back to his father with his speech. I sinned against God and you. Dad never hears it. He never heard the speech. Pretty sure my stepdad never heard mine either. But he doesn't look down upon the son. He embraces him joyfully. Throws a party. Imagine that. Imagine that. As a young person, you'd gone out and you'd really messed up. Do you think your parents would have thrown a party for you? Yes, we call this the story of the son who's returned. Draws our attention to that wayward youth, who many of us have experienced that before, either as ourselves or with our own youth. Another thing the preacher likes to draw their attention to is the jealous sibling. Sibling rivalry. Comes in from the field, there's a party going on. What's going on? Your brother's returned. Dad comes out. Son, why don't you come in? He doesn't say because you're throwing a party for my brother. He says, you're throwing a party for your son. Totally disowns him. It's like, you don't even know it's his brother. No, it's your son. I've been here all this time. You haven't thrown a party for me, but you're throwing one for him after all the things he's done. The jealous sibling. Sibling rivalry was thousands of years old. I didn't experience it. Brenda, how was sibling rivalry? Yeah, that's what I thought. I've seen a little bit, so I know better. And what about the father? You see, whoever in their wisdom named this the story of the prodigal son missed the point. The wayward son has never been the focal point, nor is it the jealous one. It's always been about the father. Rembrandt, again, I don't know art, somebody told me, Rembrandt is a genius. And when you look at this picture, forgive me, I got my own picture, I can see a little bit better myself here. And if you look at this picture that's on the screen, you notice there's not just the father, not just the son with the falling apart shoes, not just that jealous son standing over going, really? You're throwing a party for him. There's the rest of us sitting in that portrait also, looking on. What's going to happen? What's next? It's a story that the preacher often asks, who are you in this picture? Are you the prodigal son? Are you the returning child who has sinned against God and your parents, asking for mercy? Notice he never repents. He never says, I'm sorry, I messed up. He never changes his way. He returns home because he's stupid and he's hungry. It's a good combination to get kids home. Trust me, I've gone home a few times. Or are we the jealous sibling? When we think about heaven, we want layers of heaven. And we think we deserve the highest layer, while all those really bad sinners get the lower layers, if they get there. We think we deserve more. When we forget being in the presence of the one is simple enough. But Rembrandt gives us the other options. Maybe we're the ones that are watching everything. What are happening to the really bad people? How's that going to play out? Maybe they're the servants, the hired hand, maybe family members, sitting there and watching. So where's the focal point? If you get in real close, well, we know it's not the people in the background. I've already given a hint, it's not the son. This thing is totally poorly named. I like what Henry Nouwen catches. And I think Rembrandt catches. The brightest spot in the picture is the father's hands. Henry Nouwen writes, the true center of Rembrandt's painting is the hands of the Father. On them, all the light is concentrated. On them, the eyes of the bystanders are focused. In them, mercy becomes flesh. Upon them, forgiveness, reconciliation, and healing come together. And through them, not only the tired son, but also the worn-out father find their rest. From the moment I first saw the poster in Simon's office door, I felt drawn to those hands. I did not fully understand why, but gradually over the years, I have come to know those hands. They have held me from the hour of my conception. They welcomed me at my birth, held me close to my mother's breast, fed me and kept me warm. They have protected me in times of danger and consoled me in times of grief. They have waved me goodbye and always welcomed me back. Those are God's hands. They are also the hands of my parents, teachers, friends, healers, and all those whom God has given me to remind me how safely I am held. I want to invite you to think about those hands. The hands that embrace, that comfort. You see, the painting, like society, is pulled together with kindness, with gentleness. Whenever things go wrong, that's when we're at our best, unfortunately. Father doesn't condemn either one of the children nor the onlookers, but he pulls them and holds them together. We often want to think, the church is like the Father, forgiving and a wonderful place. And yet in our world, the church is often more judgmental and divisive in our social landscape. It's those hands of forgiveness, those hands of mercy that pull us together, that hold us tight, that bind us. Not anger, not judgment, not condescension, not any of those things. Straight up, unconditional, unwalled love. The hands of God. Let us pray. Loving, merciful God, we find ourselves running to you, seeking to be held up, asking, begging for you to shine a light of where we should go. Lord Jesus, help us to feel your comforting embrace. Help us to feel your supportive pat on the back. Help us to know you're there waiting for us. All these things we pray in your name. Amen. I've often heard this passage and pastors leaving the congregation going, where are you in the picture? Asking, where are you in that picture? Instead, I'm going to ask you to reflect on this. In your life, whose hands are those?